Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulses, how about music, movies, art and culture, and this is Billboard Breakdown. Okay, so normally after a week with a ton of debuts, the following week tends to be a real pain to talk about, as everything sort of resets to compensate. And given the massive fall off from Kanye's The Life of Pablo, which, yes, we'll be talking a bit about that here, you'd think that it would mean this week was incredibly busy. But while it was kind of turbulent across the board, it was so in a way that we had enough returning entries to keep the new arrival list pretty small. And since I no longer cover returning entries in as extensive detail as I did last year, this might actually mean I get a little bit of a breather here, thank God, at least before the top 10 collapses in upon itself. And make no mistake, that is coming very soon, because right now, I don't think I could make a prediction who would take the number one spot in the upcoming week. Work by Rihanna and Drake might be holding on to number one right now, but with it being in free fall in all categories, including miserable sales and being dethroned on streaming, it should be replaced by something probably next week. And against all expectations, its biggest challenger is Panda by Designer, which rose up to number 2 basically thanks to stability in sales, YouTube, and monster streaming as airplay struggles to catch up. Its biggest competition is 7 Years by Lucas Graham at number 3, which has much stronger sales and airplay, but it's being overtaken on streaming and YouTube. At this point, it's a margins game, really. And it's not just here either. No by Meghan Trainor is right behind it at number 4 as it steadily picks up airplay, streaming, and YouTube to match its absolutely huge sales. It's only being pushed back to where it is because of Panda. Then comes Pillow Talk by Zayn, and it's an odd case, most because it seemed to get a second win this week, with an airplay boost to support some pretty decent sales, streaming, and YouTube. I don't see it being a huge player or contending for number 1, but it's holding its own right now. Then we get the one game that I did not expect, but I'm definitely happy to see. I Took a Pill in Ibiza by Mike Posner rising up to number 6, which rose a consistently strong week all around. Again, no huge gains, but against instability, it's holding its own. Similar case, sadly, for Work From Home by Fifth Harmony featuring Ty Dolla $ign at number 7, which actually picked up more airplay to match its big streaming and huge YouTube, just not quite enough to offset the slightly softer sales. Then we've got Love Yourself by Justin Bieber. At this point, it slid down to number 8 because it holds airplay, a bit of YouTube, and pretty much nothing else, and airplay's definitely peaked. Now, all this instability has led to other songs making a play for the top 10, like Cake by the Ocean by DNCE, rising back up to number 9 on a big streaming boost while holding its airplay against rough sales. Again, I don't see it lasting, but it is making an impact. And finally, we've got Me, Myself, and I by G-Eazy featuring Bebe Rexha clinging on to number 10. Basically thanks to okay streaming and airplay, but the latter's peaked, and against more competition, this song will be gone. Granted, this wasn't exactly a week overflowing with competition, but that doesn't mean we didn't get our losers and dropouts. In the latter category, we got a fair few of them, the majority of which you could have predicted coming off of last week. Heartbeat by Carrie Underwood, Beautiful Drug by the Zac Brown Band, Best Friend by Young Thug, thank God, When We Were Young by Adele, and finally, Hotline Bling by Drake. And most of the losses you could have predicted too, and they can be easily split into 2 categories, country and Kanye. In the latter category, Ultralight Beam by The Dream, Kelly Price and Chance the Rapper slides down to 90, Waves with Chris Brown slides down to 86, Father Stretch My Hands with Kid Cudi goes down to 54, Part 2 with Designer went down to 73, and Famous with Rihanna and Swiss Beats skidded down to 49. In the latter category with the country, well, I expected Drunk on Your Love by Brett Eldridge to continue down to 65, and Nobody to Blame by Chris Stapleton to lose momentum going down to 80, but I am surprised that Lights Come On by Jason Aldean didn't pick up any momentum at all off its debut last week. It fell hard down to 93, and that baffles me. The song's got energy, solid enough instrumentation. Is it not playing on country radio because it's leaning more towards rock? Because that'd be wrong on every conceivable level. It's not a bad song. Granted, when you look towards our returning entries and gains, it starts getting a little bit less predictable. I mean, sure, with the Lumineers releasing an album, it would make sense that Ophelia would come back to 66, and same with New Level by A$AP Ferg and Future at 100. And I guess I can see why the Fast Car cover from Jonas Blue and Dakota came back to 99. It's huge in the UK. I kind of see the appeal. It's a pretty decent cover. Beyond that, okay, even though I liked Moolah by Young Greatness when I covered it, I don't mind that it's back at 87. It's not the sort of song you would expect to have chart appeal beyond the hook. And Uber Everywhere by Made in TYO doesn't even have that, and it came back to 82. Granted, I'm not really wild about any of our gains this week either. At best, we got Body by Dreezy featuring Jeremiah finally getting some momentum to 77, or maybe Lost Boy by Ruth B continuing its inexplicable rise to 41, but beyond that, okay, for one, I'm shocked New Romantics by Taylor Swift has any traction at all, let alone jump up to 46. How many singles are we in from 1989 again? This is just looking excessive. Move on, Taylor. Then we have hip hop, and sure, I don't mind that Saved by Ty Dolla $ign and E40, but if we're also getting boosted Cut It by OG Genesis featuring Young Dolph up to 44, and All the Way Up by Fat Joe, Remy Ma, and French Montana up to 69, that's a problem, I gotta be honest there. And look, while I get the appeal of both songs, and Light It Up by Major Lazer featuring Nyla going up to 75 thanks to being a solid summer song, and Never Be Like You by Flume featuring Kai for just being kind of off-kilter enough to draw attention for it to go up, I wouldn't say I'm a huge fan of either song. That leaves us with two songs. Mind Reader by Dustin Lynch, which really is playing catch-up to the country gains from last week going up to 67, and Needed Me by Rihanna continuing its steady rise up to 33, basically because she needs something to replace work. Why not pick the DJ Mustard cut instead of better songs? So on that promising note, let's talk about our pretty sparse list of new arrivals. Starting off with number 94, If It Ain't Love by Jason Derulo. You know, I'm starting to get the impression that Jason Derulo has no idea how to properly manage his career. If you take a look at his most successful songs in recent years, like Talk Dirty or Want to Want Me, they're tracks that have a lot of color and spark and personality to them. And while I might lament the fact that Cheyenne didn't do better, it might have just been too dark and edgy for the audience that Jason Derulo was chasing, or maybe they don't buy that he can pull off that dark, edgy side well. Hell, even as god-awful as Wiggle is, the cartoonish vibe of the video implies that even Jason Derulo wasn't taking it that seriously, and yet instead of leaning into that lighter, sillier side, we're just making the blindingly obvious choice to release Painkiller with Meghan Trainor for the crossover smash that's better than it has any right to be. We get his newest single playing off a cavernous bass, rattling tropical percussion, flashes of synth, and a pile-off of pitch-shifted vocals that very quickly start grating on my nerves. More than anything, especially in the lyrics, considering it's a pretty cheap hookup song, it reminds me of a low-rent Chris Brown track, especially with the hip-hop inflections on the bridge. And considering that Jason Derulo can be an artist who at least has more imagination than that, I can't help but feel that not only is this not very good of a song, it's not exactly going to be successful either. Just saying. Number 92, Ain't Your Mama by Jennifer Lopez.
I ain't gonna do your laundry. I ain't your mama. I ain't your mama. Boy, I ain't your mama. When you gonna get your act together? I ain't your mama. No, I ain't your mama. No, I ain't your mama. No.
And on the topic of Meghan Trainor, this is a song that she co-wrote for Jennifer Lopez, and wow, it sounds like a Meghan Trainor song because of the few J-Lo songs I do like. It's not really doing it for me. Now, to be fair, it sounds like a better Meghan Trainor song positioned as the anti-housewife anthem where it blasts guys who expect women to do everything and not pitch in. Okay, broad caricature aside, I'm basically fine with that in the lyrics. Relationships need to be a two-way street. What I question is giving the song to Jennifer Lopez, because it strikes me as a very weird fit. I mean, does anybody remotely buy that the same woman who made Jenny from the Block would have let things get to the point in a relationship where she would need or believably perform a song like this? And beyond that, even by the low standards I hold modern Jennifer Lopez songs, I'm really not wild about the instrumentation. The percussion groove is very blocky and stiff, the backing textures have no warmth or flair until the guitar tries to kick into a groove, and even then there's no flair to this that really sucks me in. It doesn't have much groove to it. Forget the overblown controversy of Dr. Luke giving the song to J-Lo. It was originally intended for Meghan Trainor 2 years ago before being passed over, but from what I remember of Tidal, Meghan Trainor would have been better off taking this than Dear Future Husband. As it is, look, I get the song's appeal and it's kinda nice to see J-Lo back on the charts. It's better than what Shakira's got out right now, but she's not the right performer to pull this off. Just saying. Number 91, Faded by Alan Walker. See, honestly, I knew I had a good reason for not putting this on as a world hit a few weeks back, cause let's face it was only a matter of time before Alan Walker's worldwide smash hit made it over to the United States Hot 100, remixed with vocals from fellow Norwegian Iselin Solheim in 2015 before exploding this year. And as I said when I briefly mentioned it in World Hits, I wasn't really fond of the song. Yeah, the piano that opens the track is pretty, and it complements Solheim's vocals pretty well in that wistfulness, but am I the only one who thinks that synth that comes in to replace the piano starts off way too thin before breaking to an oddly flat progression against a beat that really can't support it? That's where the vocals are chopped into fragments before the final chorus. But then again, it's not like the lyrics say anything that's all that unique, just another melancholic reflection on a breakup. I mean, it's not a bad song, but honestly, it's nothing I'm gonna remember either. Number 85, Law by Yo Gotti featuring E40.
Don't forget about your dog, that law. I'm a street nigga, so it's fuck the law. If you broke nigga, that should be against the law. Fuck no bitch that fucking with your dog, that law. If you come up, don't forget about your dog, that law. I'm a street nigga, so it's fuck the law. If you broke nigga, that should be against the law.
Now, I've been expecting Yo Gotti to release a second single for months now, ever since Down the DM did way better than I think anyone could have reasonably expected, becoming by far Yo Gotti's biggest ever hit. And even though I kind of doubt this follow-up will be as big, I think I like this a lot more. Mostly because Yo Gotti's pivoting back to his more gangsta zone, where his voice is a little bit more of a natural fit. And maybe I'm just a sucker for this sort of gangsta bravado, but many of the laws that Yo Gotti and E40 drop in the song, they're surprisingly solid. Don't forget your crew when you come up. Don't mess around with your crew's girls. Don't start beef over bad bitches. When your girl is getting it and going really well, support her. Don't rock all white if it looks dingy. All this generally makes sense. Pretty agreeable. Sure, he does push it as much as anybody might want it. Getting head on the first date, it's probably not going to become a law. And that odd slowdown in the second verse doesn't really help a lot of the momentum. But then E40 brings back on his verse where he's clear that he sees his rivals, gives him a fair amount of respect, along with a couple lines flowing, you know the number of your bail bondsman and your lawyer by heart. Again, given the situation these guys are in, that is sound advice. And while I do think the beat is probably the least impressive part of the percussion, it feels a little bit overworked, especially with the layers of eerie melodies piling up against the thicker beat. I do think the way that the echo is placed on the gang vocals will probably become really big in the future, because it really does sound great. Overall, yeah, I definitely like this. The sort of heavy gangsta banger from the past that I can definitely get behind. So yeah, check this out. And finally, number 70, Messin' Around by Pitbull featuring Enrique Iglesias.
Heard it from another, you've been messing around. I'm hoping that your friends told you about me too. Cause I'ma tell you straight up, I've been messing around.
If you told me in 2011, I wouldn't have said that Pitbull would have lasted on the club boom. I would have laughed in your face if you had said otherwise. And yet here we are. 5 years later, and he's got a new lead-off single on the charts, this time with Enrique Iglesias. And it's a bit of a weird song, mostly because it feels oddly heavy and overmixed for a Pitbull track, especially with all the filters piled on Enrique's vocals, interpolating an old REO Speedwagon song, Take It On The Run, that I happen to really like. Although, oddly, not the hook of that song, which I've always found to be a lot more memorable. And while we're doing comparisons, while REO Speedwagon was never the most impressive group coming out of the 80s, they were okay at best. They could at least throw in a guitar solo and a nifty acoustic groove on that song. What Pitbull gets instead is a much thicker, lumbering progression with some terrible, hollow, pitch-shifted vocals behind the hook and a truly stupid lyrical conceit. Why would you want her friend to tell her that you've been messing around too, just like her, even if you're trying to hook up? Wouldn't that give her plenty of reason right at the gate to never trust you? In any case, I don't want to say the song is outright awful. It's a good foundational melody, but at the same time, it also reminds me that the REO Speedwagon song is considerably better. So yeah, I'll take that instead, because this kind of mediocre. So yeah, overall, bit of a slower week and arguably pretty decent all things considered on average. Best of the week, easily Law with Yo Gotti and E40. But the worst, look, I wouldn't say there was an outright bad song here, but the one that squanders the most potential is Messin' Around by Pitbull and Enrique Iglesias, which seem to just miss the point and the strengths of both performers. So it's getting the worst of the week here. Expect some insanity in coming week, folks, especially in the top 10. That storm is coming. But until then, I'm Mark. You're watching Billboard Breakdown on Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you.